Hi guys, welcome back to our lesson, and I apologize for the problems that we have encountered with Zoom yesterday. Uh, I think 8B and 8C we didn't have a chance to do Zoom. With 8A we tested it yesterday, but there are a lot of problems, so I will be going back to just explaining things in our lessons here in YouTube. And I hope that all of you guys are doing well. Please make sure that you don't get out too much and protect yourselves and wash your hands, wear a mask if you really need to go out. So I hope you all guys are safe and always keep yourself protected. We are now in inquiry 4.3. This lesson was given to you last week as a self um, driven activity. However, I need to explain this for you to understand more about the importance of drylands, the aridity index, and how it is solved, and many other information that comes with it. So let's start. So what do you need when we do this activity? I need you to bring with you your inquiry book 3 and also your notebook and a pen. You need to take note of of everything that I'm going to explain to you. If you need to pause to take notes, that will be okay. And if you need to repeat and watch this video, that will be perfect so that you can have better understanding. Remember that we learn from repeating. So if you repeat the video, that would be great. And find a comfortable place. And I suggest you also wear your earphones so that you will not hear anything and you will be focused on what I'm discussing today. And if you have questions, you can write down your questions and you can send those into my WhatsApp so I can give you an answer or clarification to your questions. So let's start. Let's have some definition of terms. First word is precipitation. Some other people would say precipitation simply as rain. However, precipitation itself covers a lot of concepts. It's basically water deposited into the Earth's surface. It could be in a form of rain, which is very common. If the temperature is cold, then it could be snow. Sleet is a different thing because it's like snow and then it melted in the atmosphere and then it got frozen again and then it fell down to the earth. So that is sleet. Dew is the suspended water vapor. Mostly it happens in high pressure atmosphere, and you will see dew when the water vapor is low and it touches the leaves, grass, and that's the feeling when you go out early in the morning and your shoes become very wet in the grass because of the dew that precipitated in the plants or the grass. And then we also have hail, which is a larger form of ice. And this happens usually during storm. If there was a very hot temperature followed by a sudden rain. So there is a reaction between the temperature of water vapor and the charges between the moving air. So water becomes frozen and then it collects water and it gets frozen again until it gets into bigger pellets or balls of ice. So again, precipitation is the general term for any form of water that goes down or deposited into the surface of the earth. Please remember that precipitation can affect the dryness of a place. So when there is less rain, it means the drier the place can be. When the place has more rain, then you can have more wetlands or more flooding that may happen in a certain place, especially if you live near the equator. And following this lesson, we will be understanding the meaning of aridity index. When you say the word arid or aridity, it is the state of being dry. Arid means dry. Aridity, that means you are in a state or a state of being dry. Now, aridity can be measured using an index called aridity index, and we measure it using numbers. So when you have an aridity index of 6.5 and below, we can consider a place to be a dry land. Again, aridity index is like scoring the level of how a place is very dry. And if you have a score in the index of 0.65 and below, then you will be considered as a dry land. Okay? You'll be considered as a dry land. Now, how do we measure aridity index? So you have to take consideration two things. We have the annual precipitation. When you say annual, it means the whole year. Okay? Precipitation is again deposition of water, and then potential evapotranspiration will be the expected evaporation and transpiration of the place. So that's how geologists or meteorologists would measure or to compute aridity index. Now, what is evapotranspiration? So you have two words here. You have evapo, and then you have transpiration. Now, in your science class, I believe you've studied about transpiration. It is the exhalation of water vapor through the stomata of the leaves. There are small holes in the leaves where water vapor can come out when during the process of photosynthesis. Also, evaporation means the process of changing a liquid substance into gas. So when both of them happens together, then we have the process of evapotranspiration. That is the amount that we will divide from the annual precipitation or the yearly rain. Okay, I'm not going to ask you to solve aridity index, but we will be discussing the 4 different types of aridity index, which is 65 and below. That would be the dry lands, as I mentioned a while ago. So here, you don't really need to copy this because this is found on page 61 of your books. I just created a very short or a more simple description of each level. So if you look at the numbers here, the lowest, which is 0 to 0.5, this is hyper-arid. This is a question that was raised by Sydney and from 8A. She asked me, what does the word hyper mean? When you say hyper, it usually means increased or high. So hyper-arid, in simple words, means very high level of being arid. So it's very dry. It is a place where it rains only 100 millimeters a year. That's very low rain. There will be long droughts that are more than a year. So imagine a place which is very dry for more than 1 year. Okay, that would be a place you can consider as hyper-arid. And only nomadic pastoralism is possible. When you say nomadic, it's just nomads means you don't have a specific place to stay. You just go from one place to another. And pastoralism means having your animals to grow by eating grass and plants somewhere. So in this place, we don't let animals to stay in one place, but people would just let them walk around, even if there's not much of vegetation or food. But the important thing you have to remember in hyper-arid places is that it rains less than 100 millimeters a year, and that longer than a year they may have very dry season. The next level is arid. Now, we talked about arid in our first semester, and this is a place where generally rainfall does not exist 200 millimeters a year. People need to have irrigation system, which means it is a man-made tube or distribution of water to places that are not reachable by a river or a lake. So people would create a man-made water flowing system. And third level will be the semi-arid. Again, we talked about this last year. The index would be 0.20 to 0.50. And in these places, rainfall does not exceed 800 millimeters a year. These places may have cattle's examples of cattle are cows, buffaloes, or bigger types of grass-eating animals. And these places have rainfall, so there's a chance of grass to grow, so cattle can roam around and eat them. And we also have 0.50 to 0.65. This is still a dry land. It's called dry subhumid. When you say humid, the air, or it's a little bit moist or wet. There is sufficient rain. Sufficient means enough for extensive commercial crops. So there's enough water if you want to have a farm. But rainfall is highly seasonal. When you say highly seasonal, there is just a specific time that rain will fall. It's not the whole year around. It's just a portion of a year where rain can fall. And there will be periods of dry season. So it's, for example, in between July and August, those 3 months will have rainy season, but after that it will be a long 9 months of dry season. So that is what we call the dry subhumid. So please highlight and read through the information on page 61 about this table. And if you need, again, an explanation, you can rewind this portion of our video. Next. So the question in inquiry 4.3, why is it that these drylands are important? Now, you may think that drylands would be places where people will not really stay or live, but as a matter of fact, 1/3 of all the people in the world live in drylands. Guys, that's 1/3. 7 or 8 billion people divided by 3. Okay, so that is the number of people that live in drylands. 72% of the drylands are in countries that are developing. When we say developing, it's patana, okay? It's growing, not only growing in population, but growing in GDP, in economic stability, growing with many other status in that country. And the sad thing about it is that all areas that I mentioned, which are hyper-arid, okay, with less than 100 millimeters a year of rainfall, are very poor areas. And Shangombo, the small city that we mentioned in the previous lesson, is one of the places that are considered to be hyper-arid. Okay, so why these places are important? Because a lot of people live here and they have no choice but to stay and find the best of the place for them to live. Another thing is that over 1 billion people rely on the dryland ecosystem for survival by these two things. So I'd like you to take note of this, or highlight this in your book. Number one, they rely on the dry land by one, rain-fed irrigation farming. So irrigation again means man-made watering of land to grow plants. So they create tubes, or people would create connections wherein water can flow so that it could be delivered to a certain place to water your crops, or to water the land for your crops to grow. Rain-fed means these irrigation systems are not taken from a river or a lake, but it is taken from the deposition of water from rain. So if there's no rain, then there will be no irrigation. That's the sad part about these places. And they also rely on extensive pastoralism. This should be letter A, pastoralism. Pastoralism means raising live animals. Okay, so two things that they rely when they live on these dry lands is for them to get water from rain and to raise their cattle. And I have here some example of cities that are located in drylands. We have Cairo, which is the capital of Egypt. We have New Delhi, the capital of India. And then Las Vegas, the Sin City in the USA. I just like to talk a little bit about Las Vegas. I don't know if you have been to the US, but this is a small city found in the state of Nevada. And Las Vegas is indeed a dry land with the population still growing. So imagine a dry land with a lot of people demanding for water. So where do they get water? They get water from underground or from aquifers, and they also can get water from a nearby dam, which is the largest dam, I believe so, in the US, which is the Hoover Dam. Now, with this growing demand of water, with this growing demand of population and tourists coming in and out of Las Vegas, they are now facing a major water supply problem. And if this continues to happen, I don't know, maybe a few years from now, Las Vegas will be a ghost town, a place with no people living, just old buildings with no people in it, because there will be no water. Why would people live? Remember that water is life. People need water to live. Okay, so to end and to make sure that you can get a score on our discussion for today, I'd like you to search through the internet some reasons why drylands are important. So we have a couple of reasons why drylands are important: because people live in it, and because people rely for their irrigation and pastoralism. Now, there could be other reasons why drylands are important. So your task today is to search the internet and look for 3 other reasons and give a short explanation of these reasons why drylands are important. Okay, only 3. Okay, and give a short explanation. Now, when you're finished, you can take a photo of your note or your answer, then send them to ThinkWave. Now, the name of the activity on ThinkWave is Importance of Dry Land. You have the option for you to upload in there. So I would know if you finished the video because you are going to this activity. If you don't have this, that means you did not finish the video. It means you will not get a point for today. All right, so stay tuned for my next video, which is about desertification. Thank you very much for listening.